All right, we're at the Dark Horse booth at San Diego Comic-Con with Joëlle Jones, talking Lady Killer and Lady Killer 2, which will be out fairly soon. Easiest question, really, where did the idea for Lady Killer come from?
I've always been obsessed with 1950s, 60s advertising and illustration, and was collecting it for years, and finally decided to put it to good use. But I wanted to explore like a duality of character and nature in someone that was sort of thrust into a role. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
With the character, it's been really fascinating. It's just, I haven't heard anyone say anything negative about it. Like, people seem to love the character, even though you probably shouldn't, because she's a killer. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, people seem to really love Josie, even though she is a contract killer.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why people. You should hate her. I think people love an anti-hero, and I think especially comic book readers really love an anti-hero, somebody to root for that they shouldn't, or that's kind of on the outside. I don't know. I mean, I really love Josie, and I try to be mindful about, like, I didn't want her to hate her family or like to be all out and out bad. She just has a dark side, and I think people can relate to having a dark, maybe not that dark, but like a dark side.
The series I think is really fascinating in that it really seems to kind of go that subversive way, taking on the whole 50s housewife mentality. Is that something that you really kind of wanted to explore in a weird way, and just, I mean, is that something that's on your mind, or is it just straight up, she's a contract killer, she also is a housewife, and the whole, 50s Stepford wife isn't really on your mind?
I was raised very traditionally in a very religious home where women were expected to be a certain way, like wearing dresses and having dinner ready, and doing for your husband and your children. And I grew up around many women who were perfect at home and did what was expected of them, yet they all have this dark side, these secrets, and nobody was really as perfect as they seemed. There was always little cracks in the surface, and I became fascinated with it.
So I've read the first issue of the second volume. You seem to be exploring the mother-in-law aspect of it, and there's so many, stereotypes with it, jokes that you can make. There's how many mother-in-law jokes that are out there. Is that kind of something in your back of your mind and be like, hey, this is really kind of that punchline that so many people have kind of done before?
Well, I've had a mother-in-law before.
That was going to be the next question of, is this something that you're trying to, like, through?
Yeah. I used to be married, and God bless her. I don't want to say anything bad about her. She's a lovely woman. But yeah, it's a very strange dynamic having a mother-in-law. But I wanted somebody to understand where Josie was coming from as far as like what is expected of her domestically, and I didn't want that to come from her husband telling her. The pressure would come from an older generation to keep up appearances, which is why I wanted to bring in the mother-in-law.
So the final question, the other thing that really stood out to me from that first issue is her husband's boss, who seems that very stereotypical Mad Men sexist sort of thing. I have to imagine that's going to play out more in the second volume. Judging by your smile, I'm going to guess yes.
Yes, the answer is yes.
Well, thanks really for talking to us, and appreciate it, and everyone should go check out Lady Killer.